loves. In this video, we will be going over what the core is, why it's so important, and we'll also be doing a quick little exercise to find the proper alignment so we can feel how to best engage our core. The intention and the emphasis of the use of your core is, I think, what makes Pilates so different from any other form of exercise. Yes, there are other reasons that it's different, but the core is literally the core of Pilates. So what is the core? Contrary to popular belief, the rectus abdominis, or your six-pack abs, have nothing to do with your core. Your core is much deeper than that. As defined by Pilates, the core consists of 4 muscles, which are your diaphragm, pelvic floor, transverse abdominis, and multifidi. Your diaphragm is your main muscle for breathing. It sits right at the base of your ribs, so it assists in inhaling and exhaling and maintaining intra-abdominal pressure. It also assists in expanding your rib cage when you inhale and drawing your ribs closed on your exhale. Your pelvic floor sits at the base of your pelvis, and it supports all of your organs and keeps your pelvis together. A good way to feel it is to pretend you're trying to stop flow of urine, or that feeling you get when you step into really cold water, that feeling when you take a deep breath in, that is your pelvic floor lifting up. You can also think of it like doing a Kegel, which is like imagining your pelvic floor like an elevator, and you want to try and lift it up into your pelvis. Your transverse abdominis is what's known as the corset muscle, and it runs right on the side of your ribs and draws everything in as if you were wearing a corset. This is the muscle that I probably cue the most. I find it's the easiest to feel and engage. It really assists in drawing your ribs closed and taking pressure off of your lower back, so it's super important. And lastly, your multifidi are muscles that run in between the vertebrae of your spine, and they help support your spine. So the core is not just your ab muscles, it runs all the way from your front to your back to support your spine on either side. You can think of it like a soda can at the center of your body, where your diaphragm is the top, your pelvic floor is the bottom, transverse abdominis runs all the way around, and then the multifidi is like the little seam in the back that helps keep it upright. Another way you can think about it, which is my favorite way, is to think of your core like a corset, where the multifidi is like the lace up in the back. Your transverse abdominis is what draws your ribs closed, and then you have your diaphragm on the top, pelvic floor on the bottom. So all of these muscles work together to maintain intra-abdominal pressure, support your spine and pelvis, and help transfer load from your limbs throughout the rest of your body. One of the most important jobs of your core is to maintain a neutral spine. So if you've ever taken Pilates before, you've probably heard the term neutral spine or neutral pelvis. So what does that even mean? So essentially it means your spine is in a neutral position, so you're not overarching or tucking under and rounding your back. Our spines naturally have a slight curve in the lumbar spine, so your lower back, I can show you facing the side. So you'll have just a natural curve, and a neutral spine is when we maintain that, even though the rest of our body might be doing other crazy things. And the reason we want to try and maintain a neutral spine is because it's the most efficient way for our bodies to transfer load and stabilize your pelvis. Now, maintaining a neutral spine does require a lot of abdominal strength. So if you find it's too challenging when you're just starting your Pilates journey or still working on gaining strength, you can come into an imprinted spine, which basically means your back is flat against the mat. So you don't have that slight curve. You're really pressing down and keeping your spine nice and flat. Now, I know it's kind of hard to understand without feeling it in your body, so let's do a little exercise together so we can work on finding your neutral spine and your imprinted spine so you can feel what it's like in your body. So let's lie down on our backs. So take a seat, bend your knees, and just roll all the way down to your back. And just take a minute to get settled and just kind of feel where your body is in space right now. And just notice, before we even do anything, just notice how your pelvis feels if you're tilting to one side or the other, if you feel like you're already arching here, or maybe you have a slight tuck. Just notice, okay? We just want to bring our awareness into our bodies here and see what our body naturally wants to do. And then we'll try and find our neutral pelvis. So bring your hands into a little triangle and place them on top of your pelvis. So heels of your hands are on your hip bones, fingertips pointing down. And I want you to imagine like you have a little bowl of water or a teacup sitting on top of your pelvis. So let's find a nice parallel position where your hands are parallel to the mat. So your water or your tea is nice and balanced on your pelvis. And then on your inhale, I want you to tilt your pelvis forward. Imagine that water spilling towards your toes and feel your back start to arch. So this is where we never want to be in Pilates. It's super dangerous. There's so much space between my lower back and the mat right here. I can literally reach my hand all the way through to the other side. So this is a no-no. We never want to be here. It puts so much pressure on your lower back and can be really dangerous for your spine. So this is a no-no. Just take a minute to see how this feels. Notice how your ribs start to flare open. We've lost all abdominal engagement here. We've lost all core engagement. And your lower back is super tight. Yeah, so just notice how that feels. And then we're going to take it the other way. So tuck your tailbone. Now imagine that water spilling towards your chest and press your lower back into the mat. This is your imprinted spine. So our lower back is imprinted into the mat. We have no space between our lower back and the mat. I can't get my hand under. And you'll notice your core is engaged. Ribs are knit together. You might even feel a little bit of hamstring engagement here as well, and that is all good. So again, this is a safe position to work from if you feel you can't maintain your neutral pelvis. Nothing wrong with an imprinted spine here. We just want to keep working towards that neutral pelvis because it is the ideal alignment. So let's take a couple more, just rocking back and forth. On your inhale, we tilt forward, spill that water towards your toes, arch your back. And then exhale, spill the water towards your chest. Press your lower back into the mat. Good. Keep going. Just moving through each position with your breath. And noticing how your body shifts with each position. And then just start to reduce your range of motion with each rep until you find a happy medium. So you're not overarching, but you're not pressing your lower back into the mat either. So there should be just a slight curve in your lower back, but you still feel that your abdominals are nice and engaged and supported. And once you find that position, that is your neutral pelvis. It's different for everybody, and I like to say it might even be different for you day to day. Sometimes we're tighter, sometimes our abs are just not feeling super strong that day, so maybe we come into more of an imprint. So just notice how it feels. It's going to be unique to each and every one of us. But just a nice neutral position. There should be about enough space for a blueberry between your lower back and the mat, so you're not overarching and you're not squishing that blueberry either. So just take a second to notice how that position feels in your body. Good. From here, we're going to go into our pelvic clock, which is just a different variation, different exercise to find our neutral spine. So stay in that neutral position to start. This time I want you to tilt your pelvis down to the right. So drop your right hip down. It's going to be a really small movement. Come back to center. And then switch, drop your left hip down. And back to center. Just super subtle here, nothing crazy. And just keep going, alternating between each side. And again, notice how your body shifts with each position. And then come back to center. Now I want you to imagine there's like a clock face on your pelvis. So 12 o'clock is like your pubic bone towards your toes. 3 o'clock is your right hip bone. 6 o'clock is towards your belly button. And then 9 o'clock is your left hip bone. So let's start with our clock parallel to the mat here. So in your neutral pelvis. And then I want you to tilt your pelvis down towards 12 o'clock. So coming into that arched position again. From here, tilt to 3 o'clock. So we're tilting to the right now. Good. Come to 6 o'clock, your imprinted spine. And then to 9 o'clock, over to the left. Good. Keep going. Just rotating your pelvis around. And again, noticing how your body feels in each position. Let's take one more clockwise. Hold it at your 12 o'clock and then we'll reverse. Start at 9. Come down to 6 towards your belly button. Down to 3, drop your right hip. And then back to 12. Good, and then just take a couple circles in this direction. Again, super small movements here. You might not even be able to see them on the screen here. Really subtle. And then again, let's start to reduce our range of motion until you find a happy medium. So the intention with this exercise is more to feel your pelvis evenly weighted on the mat. So we're not tilting to one side or the other, or forward or back too much. You want to find that nice neutral position where your sacrum is heavy on the mat and you're nice and evenly weighted. So just another way to find your neutral pelvis. And once you feel like you've found your neutral spine, just hold that position. You can even rest your arms down by your side and just notice how it feels. You might even feel your abs working just to maintain this position lying down, and that's great. And that is your neutral spine. Congratulations, you found your neutral spine. So it's pretty easy to maintain this position just lying down, right? The challenge comes when we start adding in the legs or the ab curls. That's when it starts to become a lot more challenging. So I'm gonna give you guys a few cues or tips you can think about to maintain this neutral position while you're doing your Pilates workout. So you can come back up to seated. And let's just go over some of my favorite cues that I like to use for my clients. So the first one is to think about lengthening your lower back. So I like to use this one mostly if we're in like a kneeling position where your tailbone is down towards the ground. The tendency I see a lot is for this to happen. Ribs start flaring, I'm exaggerating, but ribs start flaring out, arching your lower back. So a good way to correct this is think about lengthening your lower back, sending your tailbone straight down to the ground. That's going to bring you into that same neutral spine position that we had on the mat. you're just in a different position now. Another one I like to use, I talked about this earlier when I mentioned the transverse abdominis and the corset muscle, and I like to use the cue tighten your corset. So imagine you're wearing a corset and you're pulling those strings together, drawing your ribs closed, tightening everything here. I feel like this is the best way to feel your core. I don't know if you've worn a corset before, but I think we can all at least imagine that sensation of cinching everything in, and that is a great way to just check back in, make sure you're engaging your core. Another one I like to use, this one is more specifically to feel your pelvic floor lift, and that is to imagine you're zipping up a tight pair of jeans. So we all know that feeling of kind of like sucking in. I don't love that cue, but you know that sensation of like tightening everything here to squeeze into a tight pair of jeans or leggings. That is another good one. Definitely helps you engage the pelvic floor and get that lift feeling from your pelvic floor. Another one of my favorites, and if you guys take class with me, you will hear me say this all the time, and that is to knit your ribs together. I love this one because I feel like it really gives the sensation of drawing your ribs closed, almost imagining your ribs like a zipper closing together in the front. Another one that's good for a kneeling position, when this rib flare starts to happen, you want to think about drawing those ribs closed, knitting them together, and that automatically corrects the lower spine as well. Another one I also use a lot is to think about dropping your ribs down to your hips. So again, with that rib flare position, if you imagine your ribs dropping down to your hips, it lengthens your lower back and engages your core, transverse abdominis especially. That one is especially good to use for things like ab curls, anything where we're rolling up, even doing C curves. It helps you just deepen that core connection and use more of your core rather than your neck to do ab exercises. And another one that's kind of similar is to keep your rectangle together. Okay, what the heck does that mean? So I want you to imagine you have a little rectangle, 2 points on your hip bones and then 2 points on your ribs. So same idea, you're dropping your ribs down to your hips to close your rectangle. So we don't want to lose this connection here and flare out and have our points going all opposite directions. You want to close everything together, maintain this rectangular alignment the whole time. I know I'm giving you a lot of cues to think about, but that's because there's so many different ways you can think about it, and different cues work for different people. So try out a few different ones when you're taking class and see which ones work best for you. I'm telling you guys, once you master properly engaging your core, it will completely change the game for you, because not only will your workouts be more efficient and you'll be getting stronger, you'll also notice less back pain. Your neck won't try to take over in ab exercises because you're finally recruiting the correct muscles and giving your pelvis the support and stability that it needs. So that is all for your intro to the core. Be sure to keep those cues in mind when you're doing your Pilates exercises. And if you haven't watched my video on the Pilates breath, be sure to watch that one as well, because I go into more depth on what exactly the Pilates breath is and how you can use your Pilates breath while still maintaining your core engagement, which is so important to get the most out of your Pilates. I hope this helps. Please feel free to come back to this video if you ever need to reference those cues or you want to practice finding your neutral pelvis. I love you all so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!